You can do everything right. You can have the looks, the confidence, the money, the perfect body language, and still, she pulls away. Still, she doesn't chase you. She doesn't obsess. You become another man she liked for a while, but didn't need. But there's one thing, just one, that flips the entire game. Do this one thing, and she'll become addicted to you. Not just attracted, not just curious, addicted. And no, it's not about saying the right pickup line or showing alpha dominance. That's entry level. This goes deeper. This taps into her psychological reward system, the part of her brain that controls pleasure, anticipation, and emotional craving. The same part that gets triggered by the thrill of gambling or the high of a dopamine rush. And when you learn how to activate that, you're no longer just a man. You're a fix, her emotional drug, her unscratchable itch. Now let me tell you something most men never realize. Attraction is not built in the moments when you're present, it's built in the space you create. It's not about texting her good morning every day. It's about the emotional tension you leave behind after you've walked away. That's where obsession grows. That's where her imagination starts doing the heavy lifting. Mystery once said, "Women fall in love in the spaces between your presence." Neil Strauss refined it. The greatest seducers are the ones who can make her feel deeply without trying to impress her. And here's the twist. They weren't talking about being distant or cold. They were talking about being unpredictable, self-amplified, and most of all, unavailable just enough to become irresistible. Think about this. The men women chase the hardest are not the ones who give them everything. They're the ones who give them moments of intense connection, then disappear like smoke. They create a craving, and then let her mind spiral. There's a psychological concept called intermittent reinforcement. It's used in slot machines, social media algorithms, and yes, human relationships. When the reward is unpredictable, the desire skyrockets. She never knows when she'll get another taste of you. She never knows when you'll open up again, drop a vulnerable truth, lock eyes with her, and make her feel like she's the only woman in the room. And because she doesn't know, she needs it. She starts chasing the feeling. She starts chasing you. Most men kill attraction by being too available. They show all their cards in the first few days. They over-communicate. They reply within seconds. They say, "I'm an open book." But what's the problem with an open book? Once she's read it, it goes back on the shelf. Finished, done, predictable. No mystery, no tension. You want to create obsession? Be a series with missing pages. Let her guess what's behind your smile. Let her wonder what you're thinking. Let her feel like she's constantly figuring you out, and every time she gets close, pull back slightly. Not out of manipulation, but because your life is full, your mission is big, and your time is earned. Women respect men who make them work for emotional intimacy, not because they like the chase, but because the investment makes the reward 10 times more valuable. If she opens up to you and you immediately become hers, it feels cheap. But if she opens up to you and still feels like she needs to win your full attention, now she's invested. Now she's in deep. And here's where the real seduction happens. When she feels that subtle distance between you, when she knows you care but you're not chasing, she starts to internalize your value. She starts thinking, why isn't he like the others? She compares. She obsesses. She builds a fantasy around who you are when you're not around. This is where you start to become addictive. Because now every message you send, every word you say, carries weight. You're not always available, so when you are present, she feels it 10 times stronger. Your silence becomes a statement. Your presence becomes a gift. And your unpredictability becomes her favorite kind of torture. Most guys are stuck in a mindset of giving more to get more. But the seducer, the real seducer, gives just enough to spark the fire and then lets her fan the flames. He creates room for her to invest, to reach out, to wonder. And when you master this, you'll notice something magical. She starts texting first. She starts initiating plans. She starts dressing differently around you. Why? Because you've stopped being a guy she talks to and become a man she needs approval from, a man she wants to win. Now you might ask, but won't she lose interest if I pull back? Not if you've already given her a taste of depth. The seduction isn't in the silence, it's in the contrast. You show up intense, real, fully present, then you disappear. You show her the flame, then make her walk in the dark to find it again. That's what makes her addicted. The roller coaster, the contrast, the emotional spike followed by the gap. And guess what? It's the same principle used in the most addictive stories, shows, and songs. It's the tension between what's given and what's withheld that keeps people hooked. The same rule applies in seduction. It's not about being fake or distant. It's about being strategic with your presence, being calculated with your emotional availability, not to manipulate her, but to amplify desire. If you're always there, she stops noticing. If you disappear completely, she disconnects. But if you give her a taste, then retreat, you create a vacuum. And in that vacuum, she starts replaying every word you said, every touch, every smile. She starts chasing. And when a woman starts chasing, everything shifts. You're no longer one of many options. You become the one she can't figure out, the one she dreams about at night, the one whose absence feels like a drug withdrawal. You're not just a man anymore. You're a feeling, a craving, an itch she can't scratch. Let's go even deeper. Have you ever noticed that the women who become most obsessed with a man aren't always reacting to what he says, but to how he makes them feel about themselves in his presence? Here's the truth. The most addictive men don't just create mystery, they create emotional elevation. They make her feel things about herself that no one else does. They become a mirror, but a distorted one. One that shows her both who she is and who she wants to be in his eyes. This is powerful. Because now, you're not just a man, you're a source of transformation. Being around you feels like being on the edge of something bigger. She starts seeing herself differently, more feminine, more alive, more desired, and that sensation becomes linked to you. Robert Greene calls this the ideal lover. He's the man who reflects a fantasy back at the woman, one she secretly craves to live out, but is often too afraid to admit. And when you become the catalyst for that fantasy, she locks in. That's when the bond becomes emotional and psychological. But how do you actually do that? You start by being radically aware of her deeper emotional needs, not the ones she says out loud, but the ones that live beneath her words. For example, many women crave unpredictability not because they want chaos, but because it awakens something primal. It makes them feel more. Most of her days are dull, repetitive, safe, boring. The same messages, the same small talk, the same beta energy. But then you come in. You say things others won't. You break patterns. You flirt with danger, not recklessness, but emotional danger. You flirt with what's forbidden, with what's real. And now you've triggered something different in her. She starts questioning things, rethinking her standards. She feels simultaneously drawn and slightly uncomfortable around you. And that's the exact cocktail that makes people obsess. Because now she's not just attracted, she's activated. Most guys try to comfort women, but the men women remember are the ones who disrupt their emotional landscape in just the right way. Not by being toxic, but by being unfiltered in a world where every man is trying to please. You tease, but with precision. You challenge her worldview, but with charm. You call out her games, but with a smirk. And most of all, you refuse to pedestalize her no matter how hot she is. You stay grounded in your own self-worth. And that alone? That makes you stand out from 99% of men. Here's another secret. Attraction builds when a woman feels like she has to earn your depth. Not because you're withholding it, but because you value it. You're not emotionally cheap. You don't open your soul to every pretty face. You let her unlock you, step by step. And each time she gets closer, she feels pride, ownership, intimacy. That's what builds a bond. But if you give it all away on the first date, she might enjoy it, sure, but it won't haunt her. Addiction requires gradual revelation. You become a labyrinth, a maze she wants to explore. You drop hints, you share pieces, but never the full picture. That's how you turn attraction into obsession, through controlled exposure. And that, by the way, is exactly how high-end luxury brands operate. Think about it. They don't throw discounts in your face. They don't beg you to buy. They limit availability. They make you wait. They build anticipation. And when you finally get a taste, you feel special, like you earned it. You want to be like that brand. Not loud, not desperate, but exclusive, rare, precise, magnetic. Now let's talk about voice energy, and presence. Because addiction isn't only about what you do, but how you do it. Your tone matters, your timing, your pauses, your rhythm. The most captivating men are slow, not lazy, deliberate. They stretch time when they speak. They don't rush to fill silences. They let a sentence land, and they let her imagination fill in the gaps. The space between your words creates a kind of tension. It forces her to feel you, rather than just hear you. That's why guys who talk too fast, too much, or too logically tend to lose the room. But a man who knows how to slow things down, to look her in the eyes without flinching, to make her feel like she's the only person who exists in that moment, he becomes unforgettable. He becomes a memory before the night is even over. This is not about being flashy. It's about being so present, so self-assured, that she gets high off your calm, your groundedness, your intensity without neediness, your emotional depth without emotional dependence. That combination, that's what burns into her nervous system. That's what keeps her thinking about you days later. That's what makes her check her phone hoping you texted. That's what makes her read into every emoji, every pause, every story you post. Because to her, you're no longer just a man. You've become a symbol of something deeper, darker, more intoxicating than any nice guy has ever made her feel. And now that she's tasted it, nothing else compares. Let me reveal something counterintuitive that most men completely overlook. Addiction doesn't always come from giving a woman pleasure. Sometimes it comes from giving her conflict, the right kind. Emotional contrast, unresolved energy. What I mean is this: the brain is wired to solve puzzles, especially when the outcome is uncertain. So when she's with a man who doesn't fully validate her, who gives her emotional glimpses but holds back just enough to leave her guessing, her mind kicks into overdrive. She starts replaying conversations, analyzing, projecting, trying to understand you. And the more she tries to solve you, the more mentally hooked she becomes. This is why mysterious, emotionally nuanced men are often called dangerous or confusing, because they awaken her curiosity. And curiosity is a form of psychological investment. Once she's invested mentally, she becomes emotionally vulnerable. You are no longer just attractive to her, you're unresolved, and the unresolved becomes irresistible. Now here's a tactic few talk about, but that creates obsession when used right: emotional pacing. Most guys emotionally flood a woman early on. Tons of messages, tons of compliments, tons of energy. And it feels exciting at first, until it becomes overwhelming. Or worse, predictable. But the seductive man paces his emotional revelations. He reveals his passion slowly. He doesn't talk about his dreams unless she earns that conversation. He doesn't rush to impress. Instead, he lets his stories unfold like chapters in a novel. The first few pages give her a taste. Then she has to stay in the story to unlock the next layer. Why does this work? Because women don't fall for the moment. They fall for the build-up. They fall for the escalation. When you give them space to imagine, to anticipate, to feel tension, they start attaching meaning to your presence. They interpret your pauses. They attach value to your vulnerability. They remember how it felt to be in your orbit, not because you said something extraordinary, but because you controlled the tempo of the experience. Think of it like music. A great song isn't just a series of notes. It's rhythm, build-up, silence, and climax. That same musicality applies to attraction. If everything is loud and fast from the beginning, there's no depth, no gravity. But when there's tempo, when there's suspense, when there's light and shadow, that's when the emotional hook sets in. And this doesn't just happen through words, it happens through energy shifts. One moment you're playful and teasing. She laughs, lets her guard down. Then you lower your voice, move closer, and drop a line that hits her soul. Something raw, something real, something that shows you see her beyond her mask. And just like that, the emotional landscape changes. She's no longer just having fun, she's feeling something. And that contrast between lightness and depth, that contrast is what makes her addicted. Because now you're giving her a range of emotions. And humans don't get addicted to pleasure. They get addicted to emotional variety. That's why roller coasters exist. That's why we watch sad movies. That's why we remember the person who made us cry and laugh in the same night. They took us somewhere. They changed our emotional state. They made us feel. You want to create that? Start showing up not just as a man, but as an experience. An experience that wakes her up. an experience that takes her out of autopilot, an experience that makes her uncertain in the best possible way about what will happen next. And here's something else. This is subtle but lethal. Never try to be her type. Instead, challenge what she thinks her type is. That means if she says she usually dates nice, sensitive guys, you lean slightly into dominance. If she says she only dates bad boys, you surprise her with depth and self-control. You shatter her pattern. You become emotionally dissonant with what she expects. And that dissonance, that contrast, it haunts her. Now you're not just interesting, you're unforgettable. You've entered her mind as something new, and newness is addictive by nature. Because here's the raw truth, most women are bored, not just with men, but with the predictability of it all. Same lines, same rhythm, same dynamic. But when you show up and make her feel off balance, just enough to spark curiosity, not fear, you become the exception. And she won't let that go easily. Now let's get tactical again. One of the most powerful tools to create that emotional addiction is contrast through behavioral unpredictability. This doesn't mean being erratic. It means being multidimensional. The man who makes her laugh on one date, then challenges her worldview on the next. The man who's gentle in his touch but unyielding in his standards. The man who gives her affection and then leaves her craving more. When she doesn't know what version of you she's going to get, but all of them are authentically you, she stays mentally engaged. Because the human mind is wired to seek patterns, and when she can't quite decode you, she stays locked in, chasing understanding. You've just hijacked her focus. And once you have her focus, you have influence. Once you have influence, you can guide the entire dynamic. This is how addiction starts, not with force, but with pull, with emotional grip, with being the man she didn't see coming. And here's the part most men never understand. You don't have to be the best-looking guy. You don't have to be rich. You don't even have to say all the right things. If you master what we've explored today, emotional contrast, mystery, psychological pacing, depth with tension, unpredictability with intent, you become unforgettable. You become the guy she can't replace. You won't just be the man she's into right now. You'll be the one she remembers for years. The one that every future guy will be compared to and never quite match. That's the power of becoming emotionally addictive in a world where most men are still trying to impress. And if that's the level you want to operate on, where you don't chase but attract effortlessly, then this is just the beginning. Now I want to hear from you. What part of this connected the most with you? What have you done in the past that worked, even if you didn't realize why it worked? Or maybe you're starting from scratch. Tell me what's blocking you. Drop your story in the comments, because this space isn't just about watching videos. It's about building a brotherhood of men who refuse to stay average. If this resonated with you even a little, smash that like button so YouTube pushes this message to more men who need it. Subscribe if you haven't already, because the next video is going to take everything we talked about today and go even deeper. And trust me, you won't want to miss it. Share this with that friend who's stuck texting girls all day with no results. Be the reason he finally wakes up to the game. And remember, it only takes one shift, one idea applied with precision, to change the entire dynamic between you and women forever. Make that shift now. I'll see you in the next one. Stay sharp, stay grounded, stay dangerous.